Here we've got a dryer, well, a cheap Chinese dryer that you seem to get on eBay. I had a quick look on eBay and seen that they were selling quite a few of them. We had bought a couple, soon realised that they are clearly very cheap for a reason. They don't last very long. So the reason they don't last very long is it's just as simple as the brushes inside are burning out far too quick. Think average use in the shop, maybe 8-9 dogs per day, 5 days a week, lasted 3 months, and the brushes were worn out. Had a quick look at these on eBay. They seem to state that they are for professional use, but clearly they're just for a home DIYer. However, we'll take it apart. I'll show you how you replace the brushes, because that's all that's wrong with it. You replace the brushes and you can keep it going and going and going for quite a while. I can imagine most people, as soon as it stops working, will just throw it away in the bin, thinking that there's something else totally wrong with it inside. But however, that's not the case. I'll go through it stage by stage. I've got a couple of brushes here that I'm going to replace it with. So hopefully it helps you if you want to replace it yourself. As I said, to keep the dryer going. But this one, simple. This is a LCD screen. Turn it on. Start turning the fan up. Nothing at all. So that may be the symptoms that you have. Other symptoms may be that you are turning the dryer on, it's lasting so long, and then it's switching back off. Again, could be a brush issue as well. 9 times out of 10, these wee things are going to be a brush issue. It is just a simple AC or DC, whatever it is. Motor inside, very, very straightforward, very, very basic. Does have wearing components, but generally these types of motors are robust. It's just the wearing components that go faulty. So I'll unplug, disconnect it for the mains. First thing we want to do is we need to get the nozzle off with the LCD screen. You can see right round the outer there's various screws, so we're just going to pop these screws out. Okay, so we took on all the screws out. Next thing, we can stand up its end and we just gently take off the cover. Now when we take off the cover, you can see a whole load of circuitry in there. It's a pretty straightforward setup inside. What I would do at this point, I would take pictures, because you are going to need to disconnect a couple of the wires inside. So if we take a couple of pictures, we know where everything goes. Okay. So you've got your LCD screen in there. You've just got a couple of wires here that attach onto these, which look like coils. All they are is that's your heater element. So that's what's controlling your heat. All we need to do is just pull out the plug there. And then we need to disconnect the two thin wires there, and it's a green and a white. We've got to disconnect them so we can get this cover out the way. Just a couple of screws. What I suggest that you do is you don't fully remove them screws, because it'll be a bit harder to put back in. All you need to do is loosen them, just like you do in a normal plug if you're changing a plug in anything in your household. So pop that off, and then we can set that to the side. Next thing we'll have to do inside here, we need to take off our power cables. So that's our power cable here and here. We'll have a live and an earth. It's our 2-core cable. Coming in directly for the mains, it will come straight through, come round and up and into the terminals. Again, taking a picture of there and making sure that you've got them the correct way around is pretty vital. So we're just going to slacken them off. And one off, and the second one. At this stage, what we have to do now, we have to actually take this circuit board off. If you had a dryer with the LCD screen, or if it's just a manual button, wasn't turning on, you replaced the brushes and found that it still wasn't working, what you might want to do is just have a look at that fuse right there. I think it's a 30 amp fuse. You want to make sure that that fuse is intact. If anything, if that blew, the whole thing wouldn't work anyway. So that's just another thing that you could do maintenance wise to try and repair these. But what we're going to do, we're just going to remove this circuit board. There's a screw here and a screw up there, so we're just going to go ahead and take them out. So we've done that. You can just then lift the circuit board out. It's still attached with one of the wires. You can take that wire off if you want, but there really isn't any point. You can pretty much tell these are cheap Chinese makes. Yeah, on eBay they state that they're super duper, but they're really not. I mean, all we need to do there, look at the back of that circuit board and look at the mess of them solders. It's just been mass produced in a Chinese warehouse somewhere. So once we take that, we can just leave that to the side. Next thing we're going to do is, inside here we've got your motor down the back, but next we have this brace here that just holds the motor in place. There's two screws, one there on each side. We're going to pop them out and just take that plastic guide off. Once you've undone the screws, it just lifts up and out, and that's all. It's just a piece of plastic. We can just set that to the side, and then once that's out, that reveals your motor inside there. It's not held in with anything else. You just simply lift it straight out, and then you have the two parts. You've got the main body with your power cables, and you've got the actual motor part with your circuit board. So we can sit that down as well. And this is it. That's all that it is for dryers. In fact, most dryers are going to be exactly the same. Straight away I can tell that there is a hell of a lot of dog hair built up inside here as well. Inside there you've got your fan blades, and I could probably start picking out loads of dog hair. So it's a service item as well, got all that cleaned. If you wanted to, you could take the whole thing off, take the whole thing apart and clean every bit of dog hair out of it. But really, it's just going to get clogged straight back up again. So for the cost of it, I personally wouldn't bother doing that. We're only looking at changing the brushes here. Okay, so our brushes. One brush, we've got two brushes. Okay, it is just an AC again or DC motor. So one brush is in there, one brush round at the opposite side. We need to pop these caps off and have a look at our brushes. So how we do that is that tab there and that tab there, we need to lift them straight up so they're pointing straight up, and that will take off this covering right there. And as you watch, you'll see the brush starting to come out. It's held in, preloaded in with a spring. We start to take the brush out, and there's our brush right there. Little carbon brush. Now you're going to clearly see the difference when I hold a new brush up against it. This is a completely worn brush. There's a new brush, so you can clearly see the wear in it. And as I said, that was only, 3 months, 4 months worth of work, and it had worn down that much. So, what we'll have to do now is, because these ones are actually soldered on to a metal plate, what I do is pull the spring straight back, and I just cut it as close as I can to the mounting bracket, and what you'll be left with is a big spring. Don't lose that, because that's a preload, so that's very important. And there's your old brush right there, so that can get thrown in the bin. Next, we're going to take a new brush. Now the brushes, I'll put a link in the description to show where you can get these, so I can give you the right size, so you don't need to measure them. But these are chainsaw brushes. All I did was used a vernier and had to measure the depth inside the brush holder, as well as the width. And then I had to measure the depth as well to be able to pick the correct size brushes. Again, cheap Chinese, it's not going to give you instructions, it's not going to give you spare brushes with it, so you have to measure it and figure it out yourself. But what size they are, again I'll put a link in the description. They are around 6mm wide, around 11mm tall, and I think the ones that I ordered were 29mm in length, and that will give you plenty to get you going again for another few months. So we're going to take a new brush, and we have to attach it back on to the mounting bracket, but at the same time we have to have this spring fully on. This is a tricky part, but we'll give it a go and see how we got on. What you are going to need for this is a soldering iron. I picked this one up fairly cheap, £8. It pretty much, you don't really need to know much about soldering. It does it for you. It's pretty straightforward. You just pull on this trigger, and when the solder comes out and hits the iron tip, it'll melt the solder. Hopefully we'll melt it onto the mounting bracket, and the brush cord will then be soldered onto there. But we'll have to heat this up first, so take a few minutes. Okay, so I've got my soldering iron all heated up. Next thing to do is straighten up your cord on your brush, and what you have to do is, with this spring, we have to compress that spring straight down the middle of that cord till the cord comes out the other side. Now what I've found is that that's extremely difficult because of the length of this spring, and then realising that this spring is actually an overkill, because if we sit it there on the actual brush holder, you can see it's far too long anyway. There's no need for all that, so we're going to cut it a wee bit shorter to make life a hell of a lot easier. Okay, so eventually got it through, and the bit in the end there is what we're going to have to solder onto there. So what I suggest that you do is you then use a pair of pliers to hold it rather than your fingers, because you're going to burn your fingers if you try and solder the two together. got a pair of pliers, and that's how we have to hold it. So we've got a pair of pliers there, we've got a tensioning spring, pull the cord straight through the middle of the tensioning spring, and we've got our carbon brush on the end. Now what we have to do is we have to sit this back onto here, and I have to solder the wire onto the mounter. Okay, so once you've done that, let it cool down for a few seconds. Then if it's held, we can then let go. And there we are. So it'll still be a bit hot to touch, so we can leave that for a couple of minutes just to cool off. Meanwhile, I'm going to go round and I'm going to do the other side. So the first brush there, I showed you one way in which you can do it depending on the length of the wire again that the brush gives you. Then I realised there's potentially another way in which you can do it to make life a lot easier for yourself. So what I've done here is I've took the part of the old brush with the wire, and there's a new brush, and you can see it's not that long. What we could do is join these two together. We then can solder the two wires together. I'll cut that old brush off, and then that gives us a longer piece of wire to work with to make it easier. Okay, so you can see there that I've soldered the two together. If I just cut a piece off the top, that old piece of brush, you can see now that that gives us actually a lot longer piece of wire to play with. So I suppose you could do it two ways. You keep the spring length that long if you had a longer piece of wire, or like the last one where if you could only work with a short piece of wire, you could trim the spring down a bit to help you solder it back on, but either way it will work just as equal. Right, so I've done exactly the same again, holding it with my pliers, and the same again, just need to solder it onto there. So once we've done that, we just need to pop our brushes back into their holder. How we do that, just take the brush, push it straight down, make sure the spring goes in along with it. So, yep, we need to push it straight down back onto its tabs. I know it's probably hard for you there to see, but it's exactly the same as what you did when you took it off. So you can see I've got that firmly down in there, we've got two wee tabs sticking up. We have to fold them tabs back over to lock the cover in place. See, I've locked that back down into place. So that's what the brush done. I'm going to do exactly the same for the other side, and then it'll be time to rebuild it. So that's both brushes back in, ready to go. Again, it is fiddly, but once you've done it a couple of times, it'll be fine. So next thing we're going to do is get our house in, and the motor just sits inside. It doesn't get held in with anything, it literally just sits right inside. What I suggest you do at this point is you mount the motor in like that with the brushes pointing north and south. The reason for that is when you go to put in your bracket again, it doesn't really interfere with the wires. What I found is if you sit it east and west, the bracket gets tangled up in some of the wires. So north and south with the brushes is probably the best way to put this back in. Then all we're going to do is put this bracket back in. Okay, it'll lock into place. Put our screws back in the two sides just to give it a bit more security, and then after that we'll connect back up our circuit board. Okay, so while you're at this stage, your circuit board out, your bracket in, we then want to start connecting back these wires. So I'm going to refer back to my picture to see where these go. First ones I'm going to do, I'm going to do my two power cables, blue and brown. The blue goes on the outer latch there, and the brown goes on the inner. So what I would tend to do here is, just like when you're wiring up a plug, don't fully take out the screw. Take it out as much as you can possibly go. Slip the wire underneath. And then tighten back up. Okay, so once we've put them on, we then need to grab the cover again with our heater wires. Yeah, I'm just going to support this on a wee box I've got. Then we need to start connecting these back up. And it's exactly the same as what you've done with the power cables. And then that's us complete. Moment of truth. Got to plug it back in and see if it works. Well, that's a good sign. LCD's lit up. Got to turn it on. And moment of truth. There we go. Different speed on this one. So that is it. That is how you repair and replace your brushes on these wee dryers. As I said before, they may look like this or very similar. The majority of these are exactly the same, all the ones you see on eBay. I decided to make this video because I had seen on eBay that they had sold hundreds and hundreds of different types of ones, and I think we, my partner at the shop, had bought 3 or 4 of these until I started thinking about actually repairing them. So that's it. I hope you find it easy, and I hope you give it a go.